The franchise that decided to trade away Luka Doncic just a few months ago was somehow gifted the opportunity to gain yet another franchise cornerstone after winning the 2025 draft lottery. It's made for one of the more interesting orders possible to talk about, but many of those teams that badly needed talent, especially in the East, are still left searching for at least another year. Now, before we get into this mock, I have another board coming out late next week after the combine and everything with tiers and more detail on each player, which will be necessary because there's a lot going on here and some tough decisions to make. But with that said, be sure to leave a like and subscribe and we'll get into it. Now, the Dallas Mavericks take none other than Cooper Flagg with the #1 pick. This has got to be one of the funnier lottery storylines that we've seen, but focusing on the basketball and Flagg here for a second, he's a tremendous prospect as a 6'9" wing who can do it all and makes an impact on both ends. And a combination of he, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively will inevitably anchor one of the best defenses in the league from the jump. And if they get a healthy Kyrie at some point, they could make some noise early on. Now, does this organization deserve to be handed their future after handing their previous future in Luka away in that fashion? Probably not, but the fans do, so that part of it is at least palatable. I think Cooper's going to shine here in the short term, and hopefully this group can build positively around him in the long term. Now, #2, we've got the San Antonio Spurs, who have been in the top 4 for a third straight season, and they take Dylan Harper. He's a 6'5", 6'6" guard who excels at getting to the rim, making plays, and has a great craft to his game. And to me, he's the clear second best prospect in this draft. So even with the Spurs having De'Aaron Fox and to a less important extent Stephon Castle on the roster, he's the pick here, and I think there's at least a world where they could all coexist. Now, there's going to be a ton of speculation around this pick with Giannis potentially being available, and that's going to be the talk of things over the next couple months, maybe even after the pick is made. But for now, Harper brings a boost in the playmaking department around a generational talent in Wemby, and you can't really be too disappointed in that, even if it is a little clunky right now. Now, the third pick is where the tough decisions have to get made, and Philly takes Baylor's BJ Edgecombe. BJ is an elite athlete, an active defender, and a capable shooter, and he fits the bill as a complementary guard who I believe has more to unlock as a creator. Obviously, you have a lot to work with on this roster already, including 2 smaller guards as your best long-term pieces, but I like BJ in this spot, and I think he could still make a significant impact. Now, Philly will have the chance to move this pick also to build on what's an already talented roster when healthy, but VJ is the pick here. Now, with #4, the Hornets take Rutgers wing Ace Bailey. Ace's game is a big shot maker who I believe in quite a bit defensively is still appealing towards the top of the draft, despite some of the issues he has in his decision making and handle, among other things. Now, this has been one of my least favorite landing spots for Ace just because I think he could use a little more structure on both ends, but he'll at least get opportunities playing off of LaMelo and hopefully lean into his potential on the defensive end a little more. The Utah Jazz had the best odds and ended up with the 5th pick, and they take Texas freshman Trey Johnson here. Now, I've been a little hesitant to be all in on Trey because of the lack of rim pressure and a rough defensive showing this year, but the shot making and solid feel as a passer could be enough to make up for it. I'm betting on the upside of Trey's offense being worth it because they've yet to find someone that moves the needle in a significant way in its rebuild. I could end up changing my mind on that being a good strategy at this point, but that's how I feel at the moment. Now, the Wizards also got a terrible draw and ended up with the 6th pick, but they take someone I think would actually fit really nicely here in Derek Queen. He has some of the most intriguing upside available at this point as a 6'10" big who can make plays in a unique way, and I think being next to guys like Alex Sarr and Bilal Coulibaly would be overwhelmingly positive for him defensively and allow him the opportunity to realize more of his potential. Now, there's still some real questions in him athletically and as a shooter, but again, this is about as good a spot for him to maximize his game as there is in the lottery, and if you're the Wizards, having your potential front court of the future is promising, even if you likely missed out on that true franchise player this year. The Pelicans take Duke's Kon Knueppel at 7. Kon is one of the easier players to see as a contributor. He's an excellent shooter, he can attack a closeout, he's unselfish, and he's pretty physical, though not a great athlete. Defensively, he'll probably have his growing pains, but he does compete, and while I think teams will debate just how high his ceiling actually is, I believe he makes an impact wherever he lands, and with New Orleans being a place that they can really do anything, I go with the guy I've become most confident in that's left and someone I consider even higher than this. The Nets entered the year as a team that looked like they trade a few more pieces and end up tanking a little harder to get Flagg, but Coach Fernandez and that group won a few too many games and ended up with the 8th pick, and they take OU guard Jeremiah Fears here. He has what I believe to be the most upside left on the board as a creative guard with great downhill abilities and upside as a shot maker. Now the defense, the finishing, and consistency from deep have made him someone that's been tough for me to properly value, but the Nets are in a unique position to take a swing here, and that's what they end up doing. Toronto is up at number 9 and they take Duke big man Malawach. Malawach's size, rim protection, and play finishing make him a pretty easy sell high in this draft and a potential excellent building block for this Raptors squad that has a lot of good parts. Now questions about how much he's giving you offensively as a passer and self-creator is still my biggest hesitation, but I think he's going to make a significant impact and should be considered even a little bit higher than this. Houston has the 10th pick and they take South Carolina forward Colin Murray-Boyles. His defense, feel for the game, and physicality on the interior is exceptional, and even if he doesn't shoot, he should have an opportunity to contribute. Now, is Houston currently the spot that would allow him the best runway for that, especially with Amin as a franchise player? I'm not sure about that, but I'm not all that intrigued by the other options that might fit a little better, so they go with best player available. Now with the 11th pick, the Portland Trailblazers take French wing / forward in Noah Asenge. Asenge is one of the draft's biggest wild cards, but his production as the second youngest guy in the draft and someone who has rapidly improved as a driver, shooter, and playmaker within a year keep him intriguing. Portland has quite a bit of solid talent. Nobody besides maybe Klingon that you're accounting for fit-wise, but I think Asenge could be that long-term piece that hits big despite being in the late lottery. Chicago takes Georgetown big man Thomas Sorber at number 12. Sorber's defensive prowess and versatility is at the top of the scouting report, and you match that with his ability to finish plays and do just enough as a playmaker and in terms of continuity, and you get someone I would consider in the lottery. Now he's not the most exciting pick if you're a Bulls fan, and this will probably be higher than you'll see most places, but being in this spot, I'd want someone who can contribute and complement a variety of players no matter the direction of the team, and to me, Sorber is both that and best player available. Atlanta is up here and they take Illinois guard Kaspars Jakučionis. KJ's size, playmaking, and shooting upside is hard to keep him fully out of lottery contention, even with some of the concerns in his athleticism and handle. He's probably not a lead guard for those reasons, which muddies things a bit for his overall stock, but with Atlanta needing more playmaking outside of Trae Young and what we saw from Jalen Johnson this year, Jakučionis might be worth putting in the mix. And with the last pick in the lottery, the San Antonio Spurs take Carter Bryant, a 6'7" wing from Arizona. Now Bryant has a pretty clear projection as a 3-and-D wing who can make an occasional play and was super impactful despite not getting nearly as much playing time as I thought he should have as a freshman. There's a ton of options in this spot, but if San Antonio is making this pick, I think Bryant's skill set is exactly what you'd want to fill out the rest of the roster with. Now at 15, the OKC Thunder take the hottest name in the draft right now in Washington State's Cedric Coward. He looked like a potential first-round pick prior to the season-ending injury, which after that, I was fairly sure he'd end up in a spot like Duke, which he committed to, but a 6'6" wing with a 7'2" wingspan that can defend, pass, and shoot it is pretty obvious to see the appeal in, and that's led to his stock skyrocketing. I will say his range is probably a little wider than is being discussed at the moment. I still think he could very well go like 25th, which would still be amazing, but because of his archetype, he'll probably get a bit of a bump. Now with the 16th pick, the Orlando Magic take Colorado State's Nick Clifford. He's a 6'6" wing who can do a number of things. He's an improved shooter and complimentary playmaker. He's a good athlete and is solid on the defensive end. And while I think Orlando can go in a ton of directions with their picks and just in general this offseason, shooting and feel is at the top of my personal list for them, and Nick checks those boxes despite being an older player. Rasheer Fleming is going to Minnesota here at 17. He's got one of the more intriguing role player games as a 6'9" guy with a 7'5", 7'6" wingspan and an ability to both finish plays and knock down threes, and that's something that every team will be interested in some capacity. Now, we do have a smaller sample of the shot being good and he doesn't do much with the ball, but as long as the shot is around league average, he's going to play like 15 minutes a game at minimum somewhere, and a team like Minnesota could use him in their second unit. Now with 18, the Washington Wizards take Jace Richardson out of Michigan State. Now Jace measured in at about 6'1", which is pretty tough considering we haven't seen him create consistently for himself and others just yet, but The shooting, the field, the defensive activity, and upside as a shot maker keep him someone I think should be valued highly, and Washington will give him a little more freedom than he had in East Lansing to kind of figure out exactly who he is. The Nets pick French wing Noah Penda at 19. I'm very confident he's one of the best defenders in the class, and his connected passing and improvement as a shooter make him someone that's pretty appealing in this spot. He may not have the same overall perceived upside as others, but he projects positively as a role player and in a similar vein of some of the options that were there at 8. Now staying with the French connection here, the Heat take Nolan Traore at 20. Now I've been lower on him for most of the year, but his recent stretch makes it hard to be completely out, and a team like the Heat would be a good landing spot for someone with his type of pick and roll and downhill playmaking. Now he'll probably take a minute, and we'll still need him to bring it consistently as a shooter and in his aggressiveness, but the best version of him is one I could see delivering lotto value. Yegor Demon is the pick for the Utah Jazz at 21. He's probably the most impressive passer in the class. He's a good mover for his size and has at least been decent defensively, but the shot and advantage creation keep him from being someone I consider anywhere near the lottery. But as a playmaking wing and for a team like Utah, I think his passing alone will be a godsend for who has been on the team during the rebuild. And his scouting report is going to come out like right after this video, so stay tuned for that if you want a little more details on him as a player. The Hawks pick Georgia's Asa Newell at 22. Asa's game as a play finishing big who is super consistent and can move around on defense is bound to interest teams starting in the teens. Now he's a bit of a tweener and will need to shoot it to really pop, but I like the value a ton at this point. Danny Wolf is the pick for Indiana at 23. He's one of the more interesting players in the draft as a near 7-footer with a legitimate handle and solid 3-ball. He does have some questions in the defense and decision making, but he's someone I can see as a positive piece in a front court that is a little bit light behind Miles Turner, who they hope to re-sign this summer. The Thunder take Florida's Walter Clayton Jr. at 24. Now this is a little off from OKC's usual draft philosophy, but Clayton's shot making could be useful in a spot that's only real flaw has been that, particularly in this playoffs. So that confidence and playmaking upside we saw from him throughout the year, but especially in the tournament, is the draw here for OKC. The Magic take Auburn's Tahad Pettiford with the 25th pick. Tahad is one of the most dynamic ball handlers and shooters in the class, and even though he is very undersized, I think Orlando could use what he brings in a real way, whether they address that through the draft or elsewhere, and they should still have the personnel to insulate him quite a bit if they were to pick him. Now the Nets have back-to-back picks here, and with 26, they take UConn's Liam McNeely. He had an underwhelming year, but he still has appeal as a shooting and off-ball wing. The defense and athleticism that shows up at the bucket are what dropped him a bit for me, but I buy the shooting being significantly better in an NBA role, and for that reason, he's still worth picking. And at 27, they take French big man Joan Behringer. He's grown on me recently. He's still raw and has only been playing basketball for a few years, but as an athletic big who can finish plays, protect the rim a little, and move around on defense, he's got appeal, and especially in a situation that can be patient with him. The Celtics take Alabama guard Libera Philon at 28. His combination of defensive impact and playmaking as a complementary guard keep him a potential first-round pick. He'll have to get more consistent as a shooter and maybe a little more aggressive overall, but he makes winning plays that stood out all year, and I like him here in Boston, especially with some of the tough decisions that they may have to make coming up. The Suns go with Ben Saar for guard from Ratio Farm Home. I have no idea who's going to be on the Suns roster in 3 months, so I'm not too concerned with that, but Saar's upside as a passer and playmaker is too much to pass up at this point. Sure, there are questions in the shot, and he is still super left-handed, but I like him enough as an attacker and would consider him throughout the first round. And then with the last pick in this first round, the Clippers take Creighton big man Ryan Kalkbrenner. Now he isn't the most exciting pick, but his production as a rim protector and play finisher is fairly obvious and should at least get him a spot as a backup in the league. Zubac has become one of the best centers in the NBA, but their bench minutes were rough at the 5, so Kalkbrenner fills that gap in a pretty significant way. Now heading into the second round, we'll keep it a little more brief, but kicking it off, Minnesota takes Illinois wing Will Riley. That was hard to say. Minnesota takes Illinois wing Will Riley at 31. his game as a 6'8" guy who can shoot it, dribble a little bit, and make plays is always going to have value, potentially in the first round even, but he's a long-term play because of how far he is physically and the lack of defensive activity, but I think the Wolves can afford to take a bit of a swing here. The Celtics are back up here, and they take Stanford's Maxime Reynaud at 32. He's one of the more gifted offensive bigs in the class. He can score inside and out, and though the defense isn't his strong suit, he got better there throughout his college career, and I think he'd be a solid piece here, especially because Kristaps Porzingis might be gone, and Horford is going to retire sooner than later. The Hornets have back-to-back picks here, and they take Hugo Gonzalez and Yaxel Lindeborg. He's got intriguing priors. He hasn't played much this year for Real Madrid, but the defense and off-ball play on the wing are enough to still consider highly, and then Yaxel has been one of my favorites all year long. His game as a 6'9" Swiss Army knife forward who defends first is exactly what I think Charlotte should be seeking out, and if y'all can remember, it feels like I've been saying that for about 4 years now, and hopefully they address it with at least a pick or two in this class. Adu Thiero goes to Philly at 35. His defensive activity, athleticism, and tenacity as a driver are super intriguing, and despite being a non-shooter and a questionable decision maker, the rest might be worth a rotation bet even as high as the first round. Drake Powell is the pick for Brooklyn. He had an up and down season and looked a bit timid at times offensively, but his defense, physical profile, and ability to knock down a three keep him someone I still think has value. The Pistons take Cam Jones with the 37th pick. I like Cam Jones' game as a combo guard who can play in multiple spots, pass it, hit shots, and has great craft, and that skill set could help out Cade and their second units in the future. The Spurs have another pick here, and they take Janai Broome at 38. He's a productive front court piece that is smarter and a lot better than his athletic tools might suggest. He's obviously not going to be near as dominant as he was in college, but I think he has a chance to contribute and be a positive player here in his front court. Bogujev Markovic goes to Toronto at 39. His skill set as a 6'11" forward who can really handle it, finish plays, and has the upside to shoot keep him in this range, and Toronto adds him to what's historically been a pretty versatile group. Miles Bird is the pick for the Wizards at 40. He probably returns to school, that would be my guess, but I'd still draft him as a wing who makes plays defensively, can knock down shots, and he's one of those guys who projects really well as a role player if he can develop physically. The Warriors pick Duke's Tyrese Proctor. I still really like Proctor's game as a combo guard who shoots, defends, and we've seen make plays when necessary. The Warriors can't expect a ton out of who they pick here, but I think Proctor could be a positive piece in the rotation that includes a lot of guys with flaws that Steph is usually forced to cover up for. The Kings take Yannick Konen-Niederhauser at 42, to be, and that's why. Nice game as a role-playing wing at 6'8". He doesn't have an elite skill, but he can knock down shots, he profiles well off the ball, and has improved quite a bit defensively. The Thunder take another national champion in Florida big man Alex Condon. He's still got first round buzz for some. I think he could use another year of seasoning, but his defensive positioning, ability to run the floor, and keep an offense flowing could be useful here in the long run. The Chicago Bulls pick up Duke's Sion James at 45. Sion was vital for Duke as a physically imposing off guard who defends, plays well without the ball, and can knock down a shot. I think he makes sense for most teams in the second round, but especially Chicago that needs to continue filling spots on the margins. Chaz Lanier goes to Orlando at 46. He's one of the best shooters in the class and is a pretty solid all-around athlete, and that'll pretty much do it for this Magic squad. Now Milos Uzan goes to the Bucks here. His game as a shooter, secondary playmaker, and improved defender should find interest in the second, though I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to Houston or if he went about 10 spots higher than this. The Grizzlies take a favorite of mine in Georgetown's Micah Peavy. He's got terrific energy, he's one of the better wing defenders in the class, and an improved shooter, and I think he should have a chance to contribute somewhere despite being an older player. Kobe Brea goes to Cleveland at 49. He's a tremendous shooter on the wing who doesn't do too much else, but he has solid size and should be towards the top of boards if you are looking for a shooter. The Knicks take Jameer Watkins at 50. His wing defense, playmaking, and slashing keep him draftable, and I think he'd fit the Knicks' identity in a significant way. The Clippers take a swing on Dink Pate. He's someone I'd like to see in a workout setting because I still think there's something there in a 6'8" wing who can dribble, make plays, and has had stretches of improved shooting this year. He's still likely going to spend some years in the G, even if he goes in like the 30s, but at this point in the draft, he's definitely worth it. The Suns take RJ Lewis at 52. His ending to the tournament really hurt what was some excellent draft momentum given how well he was shooting the ball, to also complement the energy and wing defense that he brings, but I still like him as a draft pick despite likely not being on too many other mocks. John Tonje goes to Utah. He had a tremendous breakout season as a Wisconsin transfer, and his shot making has at least put him in draft contention with all the returnees. He is 24, so that hurts him a little bit, but he's intriguing enough to be worth it here, and you'll find a lot of people who like him significantly more than this. West Virginia's Javon Small goes to the Indiana Pacers here. He makes shots, he's a solid passer, he defends, he's a pretty good athlete. He's another one of my favorites in this class, and I think he checks too many boxes to not be worth it for this team. The Lakers take Kentucky big man Amari Williams at 55. I like Amari's game as a powerful lefty who can finish plays, operate as a hub, and take up space at the rim, and though they'll need a more reliable big next to Luka and Bron, obviously, he's something that they could really use as a depth piece. The Grizzlies pick VCU's Max Shulga at 56 as a really talented offensive guard with good size. Orlando picks Hanson Young at 57. He's been one of the more interesting watches of anyone in the class. I didn't expect myself to be watching as much CBA as I have in the last couple weeks, but I found myself more impressed than I expected. Hunter Salas goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers at 58, and then Houston takes Rocco Zikarsky at 59 to end the draft. If he stays in it, I really don't see a world where he doesn't get drafted. He's too big, too decent of movement abilities and production that we saw a couple years ago, even with some of those injuries and a lack of production this season. Now, like I said at the top of this video, I'll have a board coming after the combine to talk about everything that happened in more detail, from some of the buzz on Cedric Howard to the results of the 5-on-5 scrimmages, and also talk a little about a few guys I think will be in college next year that weren't included in this mock. But yeah, I appreciate y'all for watching this video. If you made it this far, be sure to hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't already, and also leave a comment down below on who you want your favorite team to target in this upcoming draft. As always, I'm Keandre. This is HoopIntellect. Until next time, I'm out.